Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Hello, and welcome to the Follow Brand podcast and TV series, where we help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Follow Brand podcast. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, and today we're diving into an extraordinary narrative, one that resonates with the very spirit of innovation, community engagement, and digital transformation. Our guest today is Damon House, a man who weaves his compelling story through the bustling streets of New York City, past the meeting rooms of corporate powerhouses and onto global platforms like the United Nations. Raised by two farming families, yet nestled in the concrete jungle of New York City, Damon developed a unique perspective early on, understanding the multifaceted challenges faced by disparate communities in our rapidly evolving economic landscape. From a strategist to a deployment director to a community engagement manager, Damon has donned many hats, and under each one, he has emerged as a beacon of change, forging paths for those who dare to think differently. His work at Microsoft's Global Consulting Services Division has not only propelled organizations to become intelligence-driven, but has also fundamentally transformed communities, making him a deserving recipient of the Microsoft's U.S. Public Sector Heroes Award in 2021. Damon House's work is an ode to the power of intersection, the magic that occurs when education, technology, industry, and entrepreneurship converge to uplift historically underrepresented communities. His life stands as a testament to the limitless possibilities that arise when we dare to innovate, to engage, and to transform. So buckle up, listeners. We're about to embark on an enlightening exploration into the life and work of a man who continues to redefine the boundaries of technology, community, and entrepreneurship. This is the journey of Damon House on the Follow Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Welcome, everybody, to another fabulous week on the Follow Brand podcast. I like to go into other areas of the endeavor that I'm in, which is in technology, it is in healthcare, and it is in branding. And oftentimes, I don't get to speak to certain professionals that I feel that are on the leading cusp of emerging technology, of what's really looking like our scope and what we're going to have as a human experience is starting to take shape. It's starting to blossom. A lot of people have heard about these things like the metaverse. They've heard of things about, e-commerce in a way of blockchain, in a way of Web 3.0. They're hearing things about the new, Chat GPT, which is LLMs or large language models. These are all big, big words, big things, but they get reduced in size when you talk to my next guest, who's been living in this world for a very long time, Damon House. He has a remarkable career in technology that he's going to share with us today to help us navigate this new and emerging world. So, Damon, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Well, certainly. Well, thank you, sir. I've been chasing you down for a while to try and get onto the podcast. So I appreciate the time and the shout out. Greetings, everyone. My name is Damon House. I'm from New York City, currently live in the Washington, D.C. area. Please don't hold either one of those against me. As he mentioned, I have been in technology for over 25 years, graduated from Georgetown University with a marketing degree, but cut my teeth in telecommunications and wireless and cellular. Did some federal contracting work with the VA and USDA and DOD. When that came to an end, a friend said, hey, you should come and work for Microsoft. Like, you just go to aisle 7 and you just pick it up off the rack and you just buy one. And so for the last 5 years, I've been working at Microsoft in 2 roles. The first in leading solutions and strategy in healthcare and education in our worldwide services division. But my passion has been around helping communities of color and historically underrepresented and underserved communities, minority, rural, veterans, persons who are differently abled, in the intersection of education, innovation, technology, industry, and let's throw some entrepreneurship in there just for fun.
Oh, we got to unpack a lot of that. I mean, what you just said there, you hit a nerve. And I've been in technology 25 years, and I don't see a lot of people that look like me in positions of authority. I have seen, Black people of color in certain roles, usually in the technician space, or I've seen a lot in the subject matter expert space in certain things, whether it's cybersecurity, infrastructure, like you just said, the WAN, LAN technologies, not to geek out on all those different things. I am curious to ask you, because you just said something that you got into marketing, as far as the degree, but then you morphed into this technology world and you were able to really ascend into areas that you don't see a lot of underrepresented people in. Walk us through your journey and help us understand a little bit more. First, how you got to that level, and what advice would you give other people that are seeking to travel in your footsteps?
Well, I have dwelled on the idea that one day I need to write a book. I went to school and I wanted to be in finance because my father was in finance. And that just made sense to me. And then I took my finance classes and I said, no, this doesn't make sense to me. And so I moved into marketing, but I also had a passion around computer science. And until I had a professor who started talking about some stuff, I just didn't even make sense to me. I said, well, no, I'm going to leave that to the side. And when I graduated with a marketing degree, I went to a company that does cellular consulting, and I applied for a marketing position with them. And they said, look, we love you. You're great. Unfortunately, we've already picked the person for the role. Why don't you take this job in the mailroom? We're going to have another position open up in a few months, and then we'll go ahead and bring you in. I said, all right, cool. And the mailroom was also the printing office for the company. And so I picked up books on Unix, on cellular technology, analog, and that was on the cusp of digital. And I would take mail around to the different offices and with old school, like with the little cart. And so one day somebody in their database division said, hey, look, we need someone. And I said, well, look, it gets me out of the mailroom. That's fine. I'll take it. And I went to work for them. And then I never looked back. I moved into customer service. I moved into training. I moved into product testing and then product development, and then became a sales engineer, which is on the pre-sale side, product deployment on the post-sale side. And then I started working, and this was with, we were bought out by Ericsson. And so there I was working with some of the largest companies, not only in America like AT&T and Sprint, but in the world. And the marketing side helped me to speak good, talks good, but it helped me to formulate creative ideas on how we could position products, ideas, and solutions. But then the technical side allowed me to understand how to integrate different solutions into what our customers needed, and just kind of took it from there. I have led divisions, development teams, and I led a 220 person division in the modernization of the VA's Wi-Fi. So what I would say is drive towards your passion, but always remember that your voice is key in advancing who you are and letting people know what it is that you can do.
You are clearly articulate. And that story there, man, just brought back a lot of memories. I'm seeing these movies. The guy in the mailroom is now, running our space age technology. Like, scary. But it's true because you have natural intelligence. You are obviously knowledgeable. You have a lot of curiosity. When it came to, and you may or may not have had this, were there any particular challenges along your way that you were able to step over as a hurdle, but then you maybe have seen others get bogged down into certain areas of the business and weren't able to actually showcase all the different skill sets that they brought or could have brought to the table?
Sure. So there was one time when I was my second round of contracting with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I was working with a company. We got in there, and they had won this large contract. And they brought in a whole lot of people. And myself and one of the other team leads started looking around and going, so what are we supposed to do? And shouldn't we be doing this? And shouldn't we be doing that? And they said, hey, you get to be some of the team leads. And just like that, because we had the wherewithal to start asking the right questions of what was going to happen. And that allowed us the opportunity in working in that DoD VA interagency office to have the ear of the directors, to have the ear of leadership and understand what some of their challenges were. And by addressing those challenges, it allowed us to be in that better position. We mentored other members of our team to help them to understand how to navigate those waters. I can say similar things in Microsoft. I was shocked, and I use that word. I was shocked when I got into Microsoft and found out how much free stuff they have and they offer. For example, Microsoft gives every student in the world Office 365 for free. And I didn't know that. But there are students out there in K through 12 and colleges and universities, or, the grown and sexy who might be changing careers who could benefit from that. And all they need to know is that it's available. And so I started diving in dumpsters in the warehouses and the all this stuff to find all those free programs, instead of just saying, well, here's what they told us they have. No, what do they have that they've forgotten about, that they've had so long? And by bringing those out to our communities, it gave me a different perspective on the ways that Microsoft could be helpful. And now, as I'm moving on from Microsoft, how can we start looking for those same opportunities in other organizations as well?
Now you're cooking with some secret sauce, because I know you got a passion that you want to make sure that our generation, especially generations and of people that have come from your neighborhoods, you've seen that they might not have had access to certain tools, not just access to the tool, but knowing kind of how the tools work. You start getting into incubators, you start getting into hackathons, you start getting into innovation ideas. I've seen you come to me in the past, like, Grant, I want to go to FAMU. I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's percolating, because I want to bring this entire tool set, we call this behemoth called Microsoft, to bear and make sure that these bright minds have an opportunity to grow. Tell us a little bit more about some of these programs.
Yeah, I really love getting into these types of programs, because it really is about where you're from, and it really is about who you know, and when you grow up. And if you grow up in, and I don't want to put this in the negative context, but the wrong neighborhood, and you go to a school that doesn't have certain things that they can offer, you don't even know what's possible. And so when I look at K through 12 schools, both in rural, suburban, exurban, and even in the inner city, where they might not have the budget, they might not have the teachers or the principals who understand what's available, how can we bring that to them? How can we help them? And Microsoft has free computer science programs that are already accredited. You could take off the shelf and use today. When I look at minority serving institutions, and that's HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, predominantly Black institutions, tribal colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, etc. I want to make sure that they have the same opportunities. I've seen students who graduate from universities and then get ready to go to a job interview, and they're given a business case and they say, okay, give me a pro forma with the financials from this business case for a 5-year projection. Let me see what the presentation to the CEO might look like for a digital transformation. And then how would you do an executive summary write-up? And there are students who are spending so much time trying to learn Excel, PowerPoint, and Word that they're missing out on the opportunity to actually do the work. I want to see more around innovation, incubators, accelerators. I love the idea of going from innovation to commercialization. And I've worked with programs that make IP available. In Microsoft, they have an Imagine Cup, which is a student university-led competition. And we advocated for creating one specifically for historically Black colleges and universities and tribal colleges and universities. We had hackathons for MSIs. And then I supported NASA in their MIDIC, which is the MUREP, which is the Minority University Research and Engineering Program. And MIDIC is MUREP, Innovation Technology Transfer. So I've supported their competition as a mentor and a judge. Department of Energy has the Jump Into STEM competition. I've been a part of that. I want to see our people from 8 to 80 have equal access and equal opportunity to what's available so they can be just as successful.
That's important. That's important because we have been in an information age. Now we're in this, I would say, a very high level digital age. Without question, look at the most successful companies in the world. These are digital entities. These are digital companies. And then we are on the precipice of virtual companies, virtual worlds that's coming out. If we are behind in technology, still struggling with tools like Excel and Word, whoa, you start throwing out words out like, these newer LLMs, like what's an LLM? Well, that's ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT was also bought by Microsoft or they're co-partnered with Microsoft. That was an incubator, if I remember right. And over 9 years, they developed this incredible engine. They're not the first, but they were the first to get out there and really get it adopted to a level where this is the most widely adopted technology in the history of mankind. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, and so there are a number of companies that have fantastic ideas. I mean, brilliant ideas. We can go all the way back to sliced bread and the wheel. And when you give companies like this an opportunity, they're able to succeed. AT&T famously had a monopoly where they had a lockdown on long distance, and MCI tried to come in, and AT&T basically said, we need to keep you down because it's better for the world. And when AT&T was broken up and MCI succeeded, that actually laid the foundation for the internet in its current inception. So we need to foster and support these new ideas. Now, people will talk about AI, and they'll talk about big data, and then people start going, wow, that's great. Let's just throw AI into my whatever. No, it's not that simple. We need to develop models, and we need to train the models and tune the models. But we need to make sure that there are not explicit and implicit biases baked into those models or baked into the data that's used to train those models. And that's a challenge. Big data. How do we look at big data? Oh, my goodness, Big Brother's got my data. So let me put on my tinfoil hat and move out to the sticks. No, we need to remember that data, that ship has already sailed. Like your data is already out there. But it can be managed, it can be monitored. When you go to the store, they get information on you if you put in your phone number and they see what you buy. When you're on Spotify or Pandora or Sirius XM and you say, I like this song, they have data on you, and that's okay. It's when the data is used maliciously, that's when we need to get worried. And so we need to advocate for policies and vehicles of regulation that allow for the safe use of data and these types of tools, while also supporting new businesses with new ideas like leveraging the metaverse, like leveraging Web3, like leveraging some of these other dynamic and groundbreaking opportunities to transform our world in new ways.
We're cooking. We're getting in. So I want to ask you this. I want you to project with me a little bit, just a little bit of imagination. Meaning, if you were in front of 10,000 people right now of your audience, meaning the people you want to serve, the underserved community, and they're in the room, what would be your topic, and what would you like to talk about?
Oh, goodness gracious. I can go in so many different directions. I'd love to talk about healthcare and how digital transformation is going to change proactive wellness. I'd love to talk about food sustainability and how we need to invest more in our own communities to drive down food deserts and mirages and swamps. But I think the heart of what I would talk about is everybody has an idea. Every idea isn't great, but with the right coaching, mentoring, teaching, and support, that idea could be viable. And I would love the opportunity to talk to people about how to follow a passion, learn more, have a growth mindset, be a forever learner, read, listen to podcasts like this one. Look at TED Talks, look at opportunities to expand your horizons and listen to different voices. If you just listen to the same voices and you have the same ideas, you're going to get the same outcomes. Expand outward and go big. I think the innovation, one of the challenges that we have with innovation is people say, well, it's too big. I don't know where to get started. At the beginning, just one foot in front of the other. Well, I don't have the resources. There are resources out there. And sometimes even the federal government can be extremely helpful with grants and opportunities. There are nonprofits, there are foundations. And yeah, there are even companies that might like to say, hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea. What do you got? I want people to understand that just because you have a great idea, but it may seem hard, there may be intellectual property you can leverage. NASA is happy to work together with founders and innovators if they have a good idea and offer them access to intellectual property that got people to the moon and beyond so that they can start new businesses and new solutions. So don't just say it's too hard, it's too big, it's too scary, it's too expensive. I had a mentor one time that said, and I know other people have heard this statement, if your dreams aren't big enough that they scare you, they're not big enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want somebody to hear that and don't be intimidated. One thing I hear a lot from people is that they're a little bit intimidated. They have this big brother mentality about technology. They think, oh my God, technology is taking over. It's going to take over my job. It was as if a machine could really take over exactly what you do. You really got to evaluate what you're doing. But that's just my take on the thing. But here's the deal. If you decide not to participate, cut yourself off. It's almost like when ATM stay out. I'm just going to use cash. I don't care. You're cutting yourself off where the money flow is going. You're cutting yourself off where the data is going. And understand this, that data is more valuable than money. So if you cut off the entire community from utilizing these technological platforms, or they're just not so much accessibility, they just don't want to utilize it, even though we know a lot of people don't get on Instagram, Facebook, their mobile phone, and put out a lot of, I wouldn't say, it's just two-dimensional information. I mean, it's nothing really that serious. It's not very deep. When you start sharing good knowledge and good wisdom that impacts communities of people to make a different choice, now you are on the level of all these other companies because they're all using the same platform. As Damon just said, they call it the internet. The internet, people, is growing up. It's becoming smarter. It's becoming more intuitive. It is context aware. So if you do not participate and choose not to participate and understand how to participate, you're doing yourself a great service, or a disservice, I would say. Any additional thoughts on that, David?
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
Absolutely. One of the highlights of my professional career, being a kid who grew up in New York, I had the opportunity to speak at the United Nations, and this was literally the week before the city of New York shut down. Like, we still didn't know, should I shake your hand or should I not? How much goop do I need to use every 30 seconds? But we talked about the Global Festival for the Creative Economy, and the idea being, even small innovators and entrepreneurs have the opportunity to make an impact in our world. When we look here in the United States, every house can have a phone in it, can have a landline in it, whether you do or whether you don't. We have that ability, but when you go to Central South America, Southeast Asia, Africa, getting a phone in your home as a landline can be really tough. And so they've created this whole digital economy where they have to use cell phones. They have to use the internet, mobile transactions and payments, virtual banking with microloans. Those were all born out of the internet, out of data, out of this opportunity of sharing knowledge. And when we drive these conversations, we see how a small, a one-person shop can make a difference and successfully sell their products and their wares out in the global economy. They don't just have to say, well, I can only sell it here in my town or my village or my city, but now they can start expanding outward. Other countries have adopted that mentality, and America is still behind. Point of fact, America was one of the last countries to fully adopt text messaging. Now, you're right. Your reaction to that is like, wow, wait, what? No, SMS messaging was basically standard in the rest of the world. But here in America, the mobile platforms said, well, I mean, I guess we'll kind of do it. And people go, I don't know about that. We need to embrace these opportunities. And when technologies come out, don't just say they're evil or they're the best thing since sliced bread. Do your research. And through your research, you start to find out. Now, people are on TikTok, and you said that that's empty data and empty engagements. And is TikTok dangerous? Well, that might be for you to decide based on how you engage. And yet, TikTok has been a viable platform for people to engage with each other. And so how you use the technology can speak to whether or not it is dangerous or not, whether it's appropriate or not. And so just do your research, but don't step back or lean back, lean in, lean forward, and see how you can become a part of this new age.
I completely agree with you. You could take a vehicle, a car. No one will say, is a car good or evil? It's how you use it. You can take that same car, run into a building. That's the operator error, right? You can take that same car and be able to do some very, very good things because it enables you to get somewhere quicker than just, your own transportation. So we're going to think through these things. And this is what you just said there is so, so important. Let us use the technology wisely. Let's use it. This is a game-changing moment to recreate a different experience, a different world. A lot of conversation goes on like, well, yeah, certain groups of people have been very disadvantaged, especially in the United States, for hundreds of years. But guess what? The biggest companies in the world right now have only been that big, maybe 10, maybe 15 years. They're just beginning on this journey. This is an opportunity for us to catch up and to catch up very, very quickly Because I have learned by being in technology for 25 years, if I've learned anything, and I've said this in a couple of my podcasts, but I want people to really, really tune in when I'm saying there are two really, really good things that technology does for the human experience. Number one, communication. You can communicate with right now just about anybody on the entire planet in real time. That's huge. And that's the second thing. The second thing is what I call collapsing the windows of time, doing things faster. So if you can do things faster and communicate effectively on a worldwide scale, the opportunity for you to create and really enable a ecosystem to take flight has never been more prevalent than right now. Would you agree?
I would. I'm advising a group that's putting together virtual deal rooms where innovators can get access to venture capital funding. I'm working with teams that are looking at how we can speed up the investigation of the human genome so that we can almost do genetic sequencing in real time. I'm working with groups that are trying to figure out how to bring the automotive engineering ecosystem into communities of color where it has been lacking for years. I'm working with a group that's looking at how they can create AI-powered co-pilots for airplanes that can identify if a pilot is incapacitated and help with getting that plane safely to the ground. There are so many things when we start looking and breaking this down that we realize from a sustainability perspective, how can we save the planet? You go, oh, save the planet, save the whales, but the oceans are rising because it's getting warmer. So how can we have carbon offsets and look at technology like that? How can we drive solutions for persons who are differently abled? And I was extremely proud when Microsoft launched the controller for persons who are differently abled so that you could play on the Xbox and still have the same type of experience as everyone else. We have to stop allowing the barriers that have existed for 10, 100, 1,000 years to continue limiting our perspective, our perception, and our capability to do something, and allow some of these new technologies to drive the opportunity where everybody has a fair and equal shot and everybody can do more. I've been working with the USDA, NASA, and a couple of other organizations. There are minority farmers, and you go to them and you say, what do you grow? And they say, well, we grow soybeans, or we grow, and just sharecrop. They're commodities, and you get paid a fraction of the revenue on those. You say, well, why do you grow those? Well, my father did, and his father did, and his father did. We're trying to turn them from farmers into business enterprises where they can look downstream through the supply chain and say, but if I did a specialty crop on the same amount of land, I could add a 0 or 2 zeros to my amount of revenue that I'm bringing in on an annual basis. And if I know that I can do that, I can bring that back over to the bank and get the capital that I need to invest in some of the new equipment that could be very useful for me. When we start looking and breaking it down into those components, breaking down those silos and building out intelligently driven organizations, we can digitally transform our communities, our organizations, and just ourselves, so that we're not thinking about how do I solve today's problem, but how do I think about what's that 7 to 10 year North Star where I want to be, whether it's I want to have this job, or I want to get married, or I want to buy a house, or I want to start a business, or I want to think long term and then work your way back to figure out what steps you need to get you there.
That's it. Opportunity is there. But what you said even earlier in this conversation, you have to be aware of it. And you've got to want to seek out this knowledge. It is there. And you want to engage. And then you need something else that you talked about, the mentorship. Now, we look at the gap in like organizations like BIT, the Blacks in Technology. And you look at organizations that are already doing these giant behemoths, when we talked about the Microsoft, the Googles, and the like. Talk to me about the gap. And you say, like, all right, I have people that are interested in technology, but they're not in these large corporations of influence. How do we bridge that?
Well, and one of the things that we kept hearing, I kept hearing all the time at Microsoft, oh, you're a technology company. Yeah, but we have people who grew crops in buildings using hydroponics. We had chefs, we had accountants, we had lawyers. Microsoft being as large as they are, and then that goes for Google, that goes for Amazon, that goes for some of these other big companies, have to hire people who do different things. So there are policy arms in Microsoft that look at the impact of the technology as it's being rolled out. How does the technology impact communities of color or underrepresented communities? How can we start philanthropic or investment or incubation programs within this organization? When you look at these big companies, you go, wow, they're just tech. Microsoft is in. I did healthcare and I did education, but I also supported agriculture, manufacturing, and retail. We had aviation, automotive. We did aerospace. We were in sustainability and accessibility. We did all of those. And if you're a nonprofit, Microsoft will give you discounts and help you to do things. If you're a student, Microsoft will give you free Azure credits, which is our cloud platform, so you can build new solutions. GitHub is free. You can use GitHub to build your next solution, and you can use widgets that have already been pre-configured and assembled to build into what you're doing. When people say there just isn't help for me out there, what that immediately tells me is they haven't put in the sweat equity to find what's out there, because it's there. It's out there, and it may not be in this company. It may be in that company. You may have to go to the library. You may have to go to CEOs or proprietors or business owners and ask them, hey, how did you get started? How did you get the funding? And bite the bullet on saying, I need help, to ask for help. And when you ask for it, oftentimes it's given. I'm a man of faith, and I believe that if we ask for things that we need, that oftentimes we will find in different places, in different ways, the chance to get those things. We may need to reset our expectations, but if we put in the work and we work hard enough and we learn, I believe every one of us has the opportunity to be successful.
Well, you have definitely been successful, Damon. And now I'm curious now, because the world has opened up for you. What's next? What do you want to do as you go forward, as you look out, the next 3-6 months and beyond? What does success look like for Damon House?
Well, I want to continue the work I've been doing at Microsoft, and some of that was healthcare, sure, but I want to continue the passion of what I was doing, the incubation, the acceleration, the commercialization communities. I'm going to be speaking at a number of different panels and conferences here in the next couple of months to talk about the idea of digital transformation in communities. I'm extremely passionate around municipal broadband. Going back to my telecommunications roots, it's very difficult for a community to have a telehealth system if they don't have the municipal broadband as the infrastructure and the foundation to be able to support it. I want to continue working with the agriculture community. I'm working with a group that's talking about building out a new hotel line specifically for communities of color. So it won't be in your big cities, but it will be in the smaller cities. Shout out to the Vix estate. But for me, it looks like I want to do more around some of that consulting side of things, engaging with organizations who may need assistance in their strategic visioning. How can they plan? Too oftentimes you see CEOs and COOs get caught up in the thick of thin things, as Stephen Covey used to call it, where you can't see the forest for the trees. You just see a whole lot of trees around you, but you don't know if you're 10 trees away from the exit or 1,000 trees away from the exit. And so one of the things I've been doing is a lot of consulting around that transformative moment for organizations. And so I am talking to some organizations around how to transform, how to build, how to develop and grow. But I also am always happy to talk to smaller businesses that say, look, I'm trying to get off the ground. What can I do? Where are some resources that I might have? I will continue working with minority serving institutions and his HBCUs as well. But my goal really is to continue the fire that's in my heart and bring that to the community. And yes, it turns out my wife and children like to eat multiple times a day. So yeah, I want to get paid for that. But I believe that at that intersection, I can still serve the world and make it a better place.
You certainly will. There is a demand for your service, a huge demand, because there's a lot of small business, mid-sized businesses, and even large corporations trying to figure out, here's the question, or what's in their mind. I just don't want to be disrupted. I don't want to be, they used to be. I've become, legacy. Now, I'm not the new shiny thing out there, and I don't want to be left behind. I think that's one of the biggest things. And there's so many new tools that are coming out. But what you said even earlier, right here, you got to know how to utilize these tools. You don't go all the way in on the AI models that are out there now. Maybe, you can get into it, but you can also get pigeonholed into certain things if you don't really know how to leverage these tools to a point that you're going to be successful. And it's hard to know where to jump next. What happens next after the big metaverse wave? And then now it's the big AI wave. What's the next biggest wave? And you can't keep jumping with your investment dollars here and there. I remember that they were doing this back in, I think it was like 2000, right? When they were saying, I want to be the next, everybody's looking for the next Microsoft, right? It's like, so there's all these investment going in. And then what you had a .com, you had .com boom, but you also had the bust. And it busted because everybody's looking for this next shiny new object that's going to be the world leader. But that is such a journey that you're on. So what you're talking about, being able to have those meaningful conversations. Let's talk about, let's put everything down. Let's put the phone down for a minute. Let's just have a talk with Damon and say, what's on your mind? Where are you at? Let me give you some suggestions that could possibly help you so that when all the dust settles, you are where you need to be. Would you agree with that?
I would. So I work with a lot of really large organizations while I was at Microsoft. And I was in the consulting services division, but and people would come to me and they would go, okay, how do I use you when I want to talk to my customer? And I would tell them point blank, if you're calling me because your customer has a problem today, I'm not the guy to call. Because that means that they have more of a customer service issue. How can I increase the number of virtual machines that I'm using or licenses or other things? The conversations that really need to be had for organizations who want to be successful is, in 10 years, where do I think the market's going and how can I beat it there? In 10 years, how can I scale my organization? And this is even for communities, your cities, your towns, your villages, your churches, your nonprofits. How can I make sure that my organization is well positioned to be ready for that? I will say that I had the opportunity, I'm not going to name names, I had the opportunity to meet with the president of a very large civil rights organization and was talking and saying, hey, look, I think there are a lot of things that Microsoft can do to help your organization. And so he said, well, where do you think we can get started? And I said, well, I don't know where we get started. I want to know where you want to go. And during that conversation, I found out that there are still affiliate chapters of that organization that keep their membership on pad and paper in a desk somewhere. And you go, okay, that's just something that I can figure out today, completely understand, easy. But how are you going to drive better visualization and utilization of your fundraising dollars once all of those people are digitized into your system? That's a horizon 2. Now, once I have that, how can I drive capital projects in with a 5 to 7 year timeline, knowing where my donor base is going to be and how I can drive that revenue coming in? There are HBCUs, 2 of which I'm thinking, and if you're looking at this and it feels like I'm talking about you, I might be, and they each want to develop a hospital, a research hospital, and I fully support that. I want to be on board with that all day, every day. But they're not that far apart. And so instead of competing against the other one to be the first one to get the hospital stood up, why not come together and build it together, collaborate your resources and your investment, and build something that's 1.5 3 times as big as what you could conceive of just by having a better visualization of your North Star and identifying who your partners can be. These are the types of conversations that I like having because it helps people in our, I'll say historically marginalized communities to think bigger. There are rural communities who are losing out on their hospitals because the profit models just aren't there. And the mergers and acquisitions are just drying everything up. But they're not thinking about how an investment in minority municipal broadband could empower them to have better healthcare resources in each person's home using continuous and remote patient monitoring that could manage better proactive wellness. And then you're not as impacted by that community clinic going out of business. So these are the kind of conversations I really love having.
Well, I'm all the way tuned in. I'm sure my audience is completely tuned in. They want to hear more from Damon House. They're going to have to contact you directly. Find out how they can utilize your resources, right? Whether it's a private one-on-one or they're going to have you come in and talk to a group of their executives to figure out that next step, because we are definitely on a new technological leap that is taking shape. And there's ways of doing things that will make life easier. That is the goal, not to make it more complex, but to make it easier. It's about ease of use and how we can become a better society all the way around. So, Damon, if they would like to get in touch with you right now, what would be the best way?
Well, I'm a Microsoft guy, so of course I'm going to say you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to contact you. Shout out to Microsoft owns LinkedIn. And that's a way that we can get together. I'm more than happy to share my email and phone number with folks who hit me up there. And then also I would love to say that if you do want to reach out to me, some of the questions I'm going to ask you up front are, if you're a business or you're an organization, how are you paying it forward into your community, say through your school, your local school district, or your nearby minority serving institution? So I'll give you some homework before you reach out to me, because those are some of the early questions that I have. Because and I use this as an example, if you'd like to come and you'd say, okay, how can you get me more money and more funding so I could be more successful in my business? I go, that's great. What university are you partnered with? And I go, why do I need that? Because through the university, you can get federal grant dollars and federal contracts that you could then support that university in research and innovation programs that allow you to develop through that university. It's a win-win. And then you have the opportunity to pay it back into the community. Those are the types of questions I'm going to ask you. So I hope you have some good answers for me before you reach out. But please, I'm 1,000% grateful for this young man right here, who I have known for a good while now, and the work that he is doing around this podcast and shouting out people who deserve to be shouted out. I am the exception. I just stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night. That's all. But we need more people with great ideas, and I'm always happy to talk to those people.
Absolutely. I have nothing but respect for you, Damon. You are going to be so successful. And that is saying that because you are in such demand. You are in such demand because you have the knowledge, you have the experience, you have the exposure that people need to tune into. It's almost like you've been to Mars, we've heard about Mars, but tell us about Mars. That's how I look at Damon House.
Well, I can actually talk to you about the NASA Project Artemis going to Mars. I know the folks who are helping to run the innovation and the AI programs around that. I mean, you talk about Mars, they are desperate to have minority participation in Project Artemis, whether it's companies that can support from a contractor perspective, students and universities that can participate from a research perspective. They want our voices. They want our support. And so, yeah, I'll take you to Mars. And I know Women Are From Venus, a good book. But I'm more than happy to shoot for the stars. That's definitely what I would love to do.
Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful episode. And I definitely want to encourage everyone in your audience, in your network. They can reach out to me. Now, I love to interview interesting people. Everyone has a story. If you're willing to tell your story, come to me. Reach out to me. You can reach out to me at 5-Star BDM. That is B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Just reach for me there, fill out the information. I'll take a look. We'll have a conversation, and we will definitely continue the mission that I am on. I want to give complete visibility to all our change makers that are out there. And I want to get people, especially now we're in this time of graduation, that next step. So they're not thinking about, what do I do now? I've got this piece of paper. Like, no, you know exactly what you can do now so you can move forward. Here's some people, because without the people, without the network, you will not achieve your net worth. That's very, very important. So thank you again for being a guest on the Follow Brand Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate having a few minutes of your time in your home.
Thank you.